there's a video from like 2018. There from a stream that I did in 2018, like one of the earlier streams I did, where I talked about a concept that I like to call privilege blind spots. There's an intersectionality to privilege, and I have never been able to find it, and I don't even think that Little Bear has been able to find it either, even though she has scoured all of my commentary, and I don't know where it is, but I feel like that's one of the more instructive videos that I've done that I have basically repeated over and over again. No, it's not the you are not white video. Battle Goth 55 Hasan, if you hate America so much, why do you hate living here? Or why are you living here? Were you talking to a guest or was it just the chat? That may help. No, it was just the chat. I mean, this is a tweet from 2020. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's quote about Kaepernick is revealing, not because her immediate reaction was to call kneeling dumb and stupid, but because her apology claimed she was barely aware of the incident or its purpose. This was 3 years after Trayvon Martin, 2 years after Ferguson. My point is, we all have privileged blind spots. This is something I talk about quite often, but that's quite a large one to have as one of the more progressive Supreme Court justices making profoundly important decisions that impact our lives. But that's not, man, I don't know if it's just a social construct thing. Trans women playing sports as elements of biology, which is why it often goes there. No, the point is, why do people see your opinion as hate when it's your view on how you see something? I mean, you can have a personal perspective that is rooted in hate and is reinforcing hateful constructs. So, you know, it's not just like, this was from September 19th, but this is not what I'm thinking about. This is from the video I'm looking for. I think it's on my YouTube page as well. I just don't know where it is, but it's about, but it's basically about like hoping that people can be charitable to one another and understanding that everyone is on an educational journey, and that being normal and being charitable to other people and just being like a cool person to be around is probably the greatest antidote to any kind of bigotry. And the intersectionality of privilege plays a role in this. Were you having a convo with someone at the time? No. What is this? No, this isn't. That is not the clip. My point is this. My point back then, and it remains, is this. Every single person living in the United States of America automatically has some level of privilege over people that live in the third world, for example. And that privilege causes people to have blind spots towards people living in the global south. That's just one example, right? A black man under the same intersectionality dynamic will obviously be less privileged than a white man, but will still, if they are cisgender, heterosexual, might have certain privileges or blind spots born out of certain privileges against a black woman or a trans woman, right? Ultimately, though, this is simply a principle that I abide by in understanding where people are coming from. Okay? Especially because I recognize that was it this vid? HasanAbi's guide to de-radicalize your friends? No. At this stuff at all, okay? I don't know anything about educating children. This is not it, but this is from 2011. That's not what I'm looking for, though. The video I'm looking for is like from 2019 or 2018, chat. That's the video I'm looking for, and it's from it's literally, or did I say 2011? 2021, sorry. You look much better today. Maybe it's the camera. No, I just look much better now. In 2021, I was looking not great. Have you seen this? I found this legit scientific study. Yeah, I have. The legitimizing of white supremacy during a Twitch ban of HasanAbi. Yeah. I have seen this. It's from 2 university professors about my Twitch ban from 2023. Despite newer media technologies alleviating barriers eventually for marginalized groups. Is this it?
Is that systemic racism just means a whole bunch of racist people who are racist individually got together and they were like, let's all be racist together? Or do you think systemic racism is something a little bit different? Something that is still certainly nefarious and may be guided by racist people or may be upheld by racist people, but is it institutionalized? Like that sort of disenfranchisement is built literally into the system. So even non-racist actors are inadvertently playing a part in that.
This could be it.
Say that there's quote institutional racism. That's basically saying that this country was built to put, you know, colored people at a disadvantage or white people at an advantage.
Okay,
right?
By the way, that's literally what this country was built upon. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that literally was what this country was built upon, brother. You just said it yourself. Like, I mean, chattel slavery, dog. That's like the foundations of the United States as an empire were a consequence of genocide, and then our economy.
Okay, hold on. No,
our economy literally. Wait. Let me finish my point. And
let me finish mine.
And our economy literally was engined by human slavery.
Yes, but to that argument, we also had a war between each other, the Civil War, to prevent slavery. So to say that this country is built on slavery, that's wrong because we went to war about it. So how is this country built on racism when we fought each other for it?
Well, did we fight each other at the inception of the country? Because it seems like everyone in a position of power at a specific point, leading all the way up to what you're referencing, people were in agreement by and large, all the way up to that point. that racism should have been preserved, and then still a big chunk of the country, a big chunk of the states, the United.
Who are you talking to? Back then, some random person. I used to debate more until I realized that it was like kind of idiotic and fostered an incredibly toxic environment. There's a lot of people online that have lied. Because I'm so open about saying that, like, I'm not the best debater and I don't really like debating in general, but I will do it if I see it to be necessary. I will do it if, there are people out there that I will do it if there are people out there with like massive audiences that are regularly contributing to misinformation. Here's a moment from 2019 where you used the phrase privileged blind spots.
Advocacy, we also still have to keep in mind the average apolitical privileged person. A lot of people have privileged blind spots. A lot of people have privileged blind spots where they're completely unaware of these sorts of issues. And it's unfortunately on us, and especially allies, right? Not trans people, especially allies, to be like, all right, hold on, here's what's going on, and let me describe this to you and do a decent job of describing what the issue is and why this is actually problematic. Okay?
God, you sound so young. It's just the mic, man. It makes sense to not be actively debating and removes getting the point across in place of winning against your opponent. Personally, I wish you did more because I like the blood sport, but I understand why you don't like it. Yeah, the reasons why I don't like it is because the audience that debates attract are people that aren't necessarily interested in any sort of like political mobilization or real political movement. Oh, I think this is the one. I think you found it. I think this is literally the one. I was looking for this. This might be the reason. This might be the video. But my point is, debates can be instructive. Debates can be informative. Debates do have a tendency to change the minds of the 20% that are in the margins, right? 10% from one side, 10% from the other side. The rest of the people that are coming into the conversation, coming in to watch a debate, are firmly held. They have firmly held convictions, right? They have their perspective. They have their opinions. They have their worldview. They're not going to change it. They just want their interlocutor to be dominated. They want their champion, their intellectual champion, to destroy the other side's intellectual champion. And then there's some people who are a little bit more malleable. And there's value in reaching across the aisle and getting those people on your side. Having said that, however, when you consistently engage in debates over and over again, you end up creating an audience. You end up cultivating an audience that is truly toxic, that only wants that blood sport, that only wishes for you, the intellectual giant, to destroy others in the marketplace of ideas. People want more and more of that content, and it fosters a very toxic environment. There is definitely a moment in my career as a broadcaster that I can recall where I actually changed my mindset on this. It was, I believe, in the lead up to the 2020 election. I think it was in 2019, or maybe in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, where I used to be friends with Destiny, but we were, on the verge of falling out. But on top of that, there was a lot of people in my community that were, kind of hostile to guests that I would have on, that they constantly wanted me to like debate my guests. And one of those guests was Ryan Grimm. And I still remember at the time, I was like, why are people being so ruthless to my guest? Like, why are they trying to pick apart what he's saying and trying to own him, right? And I thought it was odd. I thought it was not only odd, but embarrassing as well. And because I'm relying on Ryan at that moment to offer additional perspective to people and give us insight. Like, he is supposed to be a person that has, like, I've chosen as a vehicle to deliver more information. It's not a person that I'm like trying to destroy or debate. And that's when I realized that is when I realized, like, damn, I think that constantly seeking out interlocutors to destroy in the marketplace of ideas fosters a community of people that aren't necessarily like-minded, but instead just simply want that over and over and over again. You explain it here. Real interest in maintaining a position. They are debate mercenaries. They have no real ideological rudder. They will debate both sides of an issue with the same level of passion.
Yes. It depends on who I'm arguing with. I mean, I know what he's getting at. He's trying to say that I'll take contrary positions on a thing. But if that's true, then give me an example. What's the thing that I'm a debate mercenary on?
When Destiny argues against conservatives, it seems like he comes down a lot harder on Israel. Well, yeah, usually because they're saying that Israel is doing nothing wrong. But when he argues against lefties, it seems like he comes down really hard on the Palestinians. Well, yeah, because lefties say Hamas does nothing wrong. Like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what ends up happening because none of these conversations are good. They're all garbage.
I feel very confident that I could actually win a debate where I'm arguing in favor of flat earth, just because you can always route it back to like esoteric physics concepts and then the person looks like they've lost. When you go into a debate, if you don't really know the subject matter, you can kind of use like rhetoric and logic to kind of brute force your way through it if the other person's not as nimble.
I mean, this is 100% correct. He's absolutely correct on this. This is part of the reason why I also think that debates are not exactly debates aren't the best possible way to go on a journey of truth. Like many people regularly will say, people who enjoy debates will regularly try to moralize their content consumption and don't just like look at it as something that they're enjoying, but instead it's actually an educational journey that they're on. And debates are the best possible way to arrive at the truth, right? But that's not the case. Ben Shapiro could fucking destroy a climate scientist on the issue of climate change if the climate scientist, regardless of how correct he is, regardless of how knowledgeable he is not necessarily the best equipped at arguing those positions. Okay? That's it.
People in Destiny's.
That doesn't mean that the climate scientist is wrong. That doesn't mean that Ben Shapiro is correct. He simply can appear correct. He simply can appear as a domineering force in that conversation. That's because the format itself lends itself, especially online, to people who are gifted rhetorically, people who are better orators. Destiny does this quite regularly. He doesn't have all the information. He is not the most knowledgeable on any of the subjects that he discusses. Oftentimes, he will assume a position and then move into investigate the position further by looking for talking points that he can use against his opponents. Like he tries to not necessarily dive deep into the subject matter and truly understand it, truly understand both sides and their motivations, for example, but instead he dives into the subject matter to find traps, intellectual traps that he can set up for his interlocutors in the future. He looks for talking points. This is something that Ben Shapiro does as well. Ben Shapiro is a very good debater for this reason. And so is Destiny for this reason. This is the reason why a lot of these people, Ben Shapiro and Destiny and many others that engage in debate, feel confident enough that they can actually destroy their interlocutors in the marketplace of ideas, even if the person that they're debating is actually more knowledgeable than they are. That's it. But this doesn't mean that they're correct. It simply means that they have they have a tendency to appear correct. And it's very frustrating because you end up making your audience less intellectually curious. You end up making your audience intellectually incurious people who are constantly seeking out talking points rather than any sort of additional truth seeking. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, these guys do basically the exact same method. That's why I find it unproductive usually.
But you're only doing this if you don't know what you're talking about, and it's an attempt to kind of like slide past the actual arguments because you can't address them.
I might not necessarily be right or wrong, but they're arguments that I've thought about before. It's not that I'm smart, it's that the person I'm talking to is usually incredibly unprepared.
It's not like my position is hidden. I'm just not going to argue every single possible point that I have if I show up to argue with somebody about something, right?
If I can find some guy that's really confident in his positions, it's super loud about him online, I'm about to get a 300,000 view YouTube video roasting and grilling the fuck out of them on my stream, right? That's what we do, right? We're debate bros.
What is winning?
Maybe the person deletes their account after.
If they
Or gets fired from their job.
humiliated.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel after you win?
It's like doing cocaine for the first time again, every time.
When I debate somebody, I want to be really fucking brutal, and then I want that person to like feel like an idiot. I want them to look like an idiot. If I make your content creator look like an idiot, well, now you kind of feel like an idiot. That doesn't feel good.
I'm the debater archetype. Yeah.
You do the same shit. You act like you are knowledgeable and act like you are. You do the same shit, bud. I would like for you to present some examples if you possibly could. Like, there are issues that I'm not the most knowledgeable on, and I will be, I will readily admit it. I don't know why people immediately go, oh, this is projection. especially when I'm talking about something like a position that I've held for a very long time, for specifically the concept of debates, like the concept of debating online. Bud mods precision strike the second he's off camera. This is a joke. No, don't ban that person immediately. I wanna hear what he has to say. But basically, my point is this, okay? When you don't have a moral compass or something that guides you through the world, like when you don't have like a empathetic approach to all subjects, okay, and you're simply invested in destroying your ideological opponents in the marketplace of ideas, the audience that you foster in that process is not invested in a political project usually. They're just simply invested in you destroying people. They like the pseudo-intellectual wrestling component. They like the drama. Does that make sense? And I don't like the toxicity that brings on, because then you're kind of at the whims of your audience. They constantly want you to burn bridges. They constantly want you to write manifestos and drop nukes on people. And not only do I think that is unproductive in creating both class consciousness or creating a larger tent of like-minded individuals that you're not supposed to immediately cast aside, which is something that I routinely advocate against in this community, regardless of what people think of me or this community. This is something that I have time and time again railed against chatters on when they're so unimaginably uncharitable, right? Like, I have a very open goal. I want people to... What? This is so cringe. Bring the guy on stream. Stop reacting to 6-year-old clips that are designed to make him look bad. Lamau attack. What are you... I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. Are you talking about Destiny? 6-year-old clips? I think this is like new shit. But regardless, this is not about Destiny at all. This is more so about the concept of debate and the toxic audience that it attracts. And I think you're kind of proving that point that I was making. Do you see what I mean? I feel like a lot of time you'll disregard people's view and bash them if they don't align with yours. I don't know. Like you say, you say you're a socialist, but actively benefiting from capitalism. Sorry to be rash in my first comment. Wait. But it has nothing to do with the first comment that you said. The first thing that you said was that I present myself as the most knowledgeable person and then immediately try to like bully and ridicule the person I'm talking to. And there's plenty of moments where I do that, but that's usually after the charitability has gone away, where I see someone and treat them as a hostile factor. It usually takes a decent amount for me to get there. It usually takes a decent amount of charity to erode for me to get to that position. And I only do it if it's like, it's pattern recognition to a certain degree. I only do it when like people are very clearly coming from a different community with a specific purpose to actively brigade or to actively disrupt, to actively derail. That's usually when I yell. As far as the socialist but actively benefiting from capitalism goes, it is impossible to not exist under capitalism, just so you understand. If you are truly interested in understanding this, there is no way to exist outside of those confines. But in terms of like the commodities that I produce or my own personal the way that I generate revenue, the way that I create value, I try to keep to the most ethical ways of producing content as possible. I think many people's disagreements with me do not stem from a real, an actual hypocrisy, but one that is envisioned by people that say, oh, no, you have a moral system that I think you have, and I'm applying my standards to you, and I will not actually understand what your standards are. So I think it comes from, it's a misunderstood moral system that you have created that you apply to people. But if you're truly interested in understanding, there is no, I'm not making I'm not advocating for like salary caps or anything of that nature. And I think that this is a very common misunderstood perspective where people think like, well, socialism means everybody makes the same money. Socialism means everybody lives in a brutalist architecture, government housing. Depending on where you are on the reactionary pipeline, you might even personally think socialism means nobody has a toothbrush. Communism means I take your toothbrush, comrade. I mean, these things are not correct. However, even if they are incorrect, it's something that a lot of people believe. So when the majority believes it, who cares what the truth is, right? That's it. I told someone I love democracy and told me I'm a socialist. That couldn't be true. You and your sycophants won't research conspicuous consumption. Look it up. I think if you want to understand my worldview, there are a million instances where I've brought forth commodity consumption and the ways in which I actually disagree with other prominent socialists. Like, this is not dogmatic. You know what I mean? I'm not an orthodox Marxist. I hope you understand and can be charitable about this. I think everyone deserves nice things, and that socialism inherently is not a poverty cult. It's simply what people have decided is a poverty cult. Like, other people have just decided that it is a poverty cult, so now you have to abide by the standards that I have presented for you.
Very destructive instead of constructive in my conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe the point of a debate is actually to try and bring people together and talk about things that are important to us rather than to tear each other down.
Okay. I'm constantly tearing down, and I can show somebody why their argument is bad, but then when you walk away from it at the end, I'm just like a destructive force.
Anyway. But yeah, in terms of, I think one of the funniest things that people yell at me about is like claiming that I'm inconsistent or claiming that I am audience captured, because many of the incidents that happen online is me not being audience captured, is me railing against the chatter because they're pissing me off, because they're so like hardlined. They're such like severe hardliners in the way that they approach everything, in the way that they don't want to be charitable to people who are exhibiting like certain forms of bigotry or whatever. And it's ironic because it kind of it goes back to the debate sophistry as well, where they kind of do that, like leftists and progressives me off because they're so like hardlined. They're such like severe hardliners in the way that they approach everything, in the way that they don't want to be charitable to people who are exhibiting like certain forms of bigotry or whatever. And it's ironic because it kind of it goes back to the debate sophistry as well, where they kind of do that, like leftists and progressives kind of do that as well. And it's something that I'm very frustrated by, because I think it's unproductive if your goal is to try to change people's minds. So they will in the same exact moment, they will say like, oh, he is audience captured, and that's why he assumes certain positions even if he doesn't like actually believe it. But then they'll simultaneously show moments where I'm actually not audience captured, where I'm yelling at someone in my audience because I disagree with the way that they are approaching the subject matter. And they'll be like, oh, he hates his audience. He's getting owned by his own audience or whatever. But are those hardliners and not just trolls? Why not ignore them when it comes to clear? They're hardlining for the sake of pissing you off. I think that it can still be instructive. Like I said, if we were all sitting in a stadium where there's 30,000 people in an arena, and if you were to look to your left and look to your right, there would be at least one thing that you have changed your mind on, either before you found this community or after you found this community. It makes sense. A lot of the things that I talk about, the subject matter that I approach, like the perspective that I have, is oftentimes new for people. The perspectives that I hold are not necessarily super commonplace. It's not something that you learn and take for granted in the same way that you learn and take for granted transphobia, for example, or misogyny, or bigotries of every sort. But here I am talking about my perspective all the way back, I believe in 2019, talking about my my attitude towards debate.
People in Destiny's community know your position. If you keep getting stuck on it so much, it shows that you seem triggered, therefore losing in the marketplace of ideas, which, by the way, is also indicative that, like, most people's understanding of debates are fucking idiotic. Further evidence that debates are not good for arriving at the truth and just simply about overwhelming your opponent rhetorically.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's what I think debates are. And that can still be productive. That can still be productive. Make no mistake. Especially when you use that format to eviscerate and destroy the talking points of someone who is ideologically your enemy. Okay? But if you are engaging in debate for the spirit of debate, because that's your primary form of content, you're inevitably going to run out of shit that you care about. And you are going to start debating the efficacy of child pornography or the ethics of accruing CSAM. Like, that's it. That's insane. That's... Anyway. Or you're going to find contrarian positions to argue against because you're arguing for the sake of argument. You're arguing for the sake of, like, winning an argument. And the community to cultivate in that process is invested not in an ideological project or the maintenance of one, but instead invested simply in the thrill of destroying your enemies. And they will then turn around and fight those battles for you as well, as evidenced by the many different people that chimed in while I was watching that brief snippet. People who are fighting the battles of someone else as loyal soldiers. For a lot of those people, we might have a shared perspective. We might have a shared worldview. You know what I mean? But they've lost that perspective. In that moment, they're simply a part of a community. And they like the sense of identity and the sense of community they get from participating in these sorts of actions. They like being a part of the process. They like being a part of the blood sport themselves. Anyway, I think you're right about most stuff. I just don't understand the need to sign an exclusive streaming contract with Amazon when you know it's only done to support Amazon and push people to get Amazon Prime and peddle their ass. To me, declining an exclusive contract with Amazon seems like the bare minimum. Well, you don't have to have this argument any longer, because not only do I not have a contract with Amazon any longer, even though I still am technically on an Amazon platform, I also no longer serve ads. So I guess that talking point kind of falls apart, don't you think? And ultimately, no, of course, the reason why I take an Amazon contract is because I know how to fucking play ball. I have to. And even in that process, when I took a contract with Amazon, I could have very easily gotten millions of fucking dollars to serve 6 minutes or 10 minutes of ads an hour. You still took the money though? Yeah, I don't have an issue with this. I don't know why you think there is a problem with this. Nobody forced you to accept the contract. It seems like you came in and you made it seem as though you were charitable, but it doesn't seem like you are actually interested in hearing my perspective. I know how to play ball, which allows me charitability as a person who still is invested in having a large enough platform that I can have the most amount of impact. Okay? Yes, I don't have an issue peddling the ads of Amazon, especially when the contract that I took on was advocated to make sure that I ran the least amount of ads that I can without making sure that without making sure that I had any additional problems. At the time when the contract renegotiations were happening 2 years ago, that's such Copeland, play ball, draw ball, morals, and political beliefs. Brother, I am an online content creator. I don't know why you think just admit you're greedy and move on, bro. Okay. Notice how this conversation started with like some semblance of charitability and very quickly turned into just admit you're greedy and move on, bro. Let's say that I am. What changes about the arguments that I've presented? Let's say that I love capitalism. I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. Do you have a disagreement now with any number of different arguments that I present? Sure, I'm a capitalist. I'm a greedy capitalist. Okay. Now let's talk about the things that I talk about. Do you have an issue with any of the things that I talk about? Are you simply that simple-minded that you're just like, oh, dude, socialism means no ads? Yes, because you present as anti-capitalism and anti-capitalism. No, I'm not. I just said that I love capitalism. I am not anti-capitalist at all. There you go. I love capitalism. Now let's discuss for-profit healthcare. Let's discuss why we don't have public education all the way up to college. Do you have an issue with those things? Yeah, I'm a capitalist. I still like labor unions. Do you have an issue with that? People don't want to tackle the things that I advocate for, so they immediately just go straight to the core, straight to the speaker, straight to the person, the messenger, because they don't want to tackle or talk about the actual message. And instead, they go, you're a bad person. You're hypocritical. Okay, I love capitalism. You got me. Do you guys understand, for everyone else in the chat, do you understand why it is unproductive if my community was full of people like this and they would constantly go into the chats of other people and would fight these battles? I think that it would be gross and shitty and lame. This is entirely the reason why I think simply debating for the purpose of debating is idiotic and creates like a very toxic environment. The problem is that people like you, the largest advocates for socialism, are unable to do the bare minimum to live along the socialist ideals. Brother, I already said I'm a capitalist. You're still arguing against the old me. Okay? Our movement will never get anywhere. Our movement. When the largest leader of the movement can live along the social ideals. By the way, I never even was able to address this part. When the contract renegotiations were happening with Twitch, at the time they had actually stopped the process of offering the more favorable split of subscription revenue. So the only opportunity I had to maintain my same subscription revenue split was if I got a contract. They changed that. Luckily, they don't have this anymore. But at the time, that was the case. So of course, I was like, I have to get a contract. And the only way that I could get a contract is if I ran ads. Now that I don't have this contract, I no longer run ads. So that should be proof for many people, right? If you were truly interested in understanding my worldview, you would be like, well, let me interrogate this a little bit. Let me examine this a little bit. If you're not interested in that at all and simply are there for the blood sport and your job is to try to ridicule your opponent, then this is what you do. You quickly move on and go. Nobody forced you to accept the contract. And then you act like you are actually a true socialist. Okay? Our movement will never get anywhere when the largest leader of the movement can live along those social ideals. What are the standards for what you think is living along socialist ideals? So you never had to take a contract to push military ads, funnel people into Amazon Prime, but you still did it for the quick bag? No, I did. I just explained it to you. There's also additional reasons as to why. I think probably one of the best reasons is because, like I said, if you play ball, then they will let you continue to play ball. If you are generating revenue for your bosses, okay? If you're generating revenue for your bosses, then they let you interview, for example, someone like Chris Smalls. They let you interview people who are directly contributing to the profit margins of your bosses being harmed. It's a give and take. Sometimes you have to play ball as long as you are not dropping your principles. I don't have an issue running ads in general. There are, however, plenty of ads that I do not run, plenty of sponsorships that I've actually willingly cast aside. I openly talk about that. A bare necessities budget would be the bare minimum. I don't think a hyper-capitalist lifestyle is good. A bare necessities budget. So can I ask you something? In all seriousness, why are you still invested in this Hasan, you're a socialist thing? I'm not. I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. I asked you to argue against positions that I have, like, moving American society in the direction of a social democracy, for example. This is what I believe. This is something that I'm very public about. Free healthcare, free education, and the like. Why are you so simple-minded as to constantly go, you're a socialist and socialism is a poverty cult and you need to abide by these standards that I placed upon you, instead of having a more productive, more intellectual conversation about the issues that you have supposedly with the things that I advocate for? Is it perhaps because you don't necessarily care and it's more so just to, once again, in your own weird way, try to ridicule your interlocutor in the marketplace of ideas? Do you have any specific policy prescriptions to treat free healthcare and free education? Everything you say is just vibes-based analysis? Well, there are plenty of videos that you can watch that I have done over the course of the past 10 years, I would say, on all of those issues. Maybe you should go and watch them and then come back, because this is ultimately the reason why I ban debating or annoying derailers, because they're simply invested in drama baiting. And I was having a different conversation here, and there's 30,000 other people. And I think ultimately it becomes far too unproductive. I'm not going to sit here and go over this over and over again for one singular individual. No, you banned them because you lost every argument? Sure. And not because you're being unimaginably selfish. You only debate train and XQC. First of all, that's not true. And I think you know that as well. I debate people when I find it to be productive, if they have a large enough audience that have individuals that I can potentially change the minds on. Don't forget Willie McLemore. I know. And the 15-year-old Israeli that bodied you. At a certain point, I think people understand exactly what's going on. We've gone far past that point. But hey, I almost want to fucking bring you up on guest star. I wonder where this guy came from. Yeah, I know. Like, imagine me being like, listen, do you have an issue with my advocacy for socialized medicine? And you go, my favorite idiotic drama farmer actually made a video on you, openly admitted that he actually didn't even know that I was covering BBC's analysis, a video that I actually watched pieces of and realized he was actually clipping things that I was saying that I was against to make it seem as though I was in favor, like, for example, Russia invading Ukraine. And no, you didn't ask me to debate specific policy. You asked me about how I would implement socialized medicine when I've talked about it over and over again over the course of the past 10 years. If you have any sort of counter examples or any sort of counter arguments off of this pre-existing coverage, considering that you seemingly have many disagreements with me, then you should be able to come in and bring those points up. This was ironically something that I brought up with Willie Mack as well. I was like, Willie, you seemingly have a very, you seemingly have this this very serious conviction, right? You have all of these like these convictions against like what I do. Can you please bring them up? And he was like, well, watch my YouTube video. I was like, okay. Why are you coming in here with no actual fucking firmly held conviction other than fuck Hasan? Okay? That's it. You can't cite the dozens of videos in which you read tweets and claim that you have a policy prescriptive on how to achieve free healthcare and education. If you simply think that all of my commentary comes from reading Twitter posts, okay? Especially when you're here a week after I had the fucking Federal Trade Commissioner, okay? The commissioner of the FTC, Ta-Nehisi Coates, where I routinely interview politicians, routinely interview people that are directly a part of the legislative process, activists, organizers, then I'm afraid that we can't have a normal conversation because you're just not equipped enough to have this conversation. And Stavros as well. Bro, I'm asking for one policy. Holy shit. So you're admitting that you have no understanding of any of the policies that I have advocated for. Am I getting that right? Because I didn't just give one policy example, I gave multiple in terms of universal health care, inevitably moving towards a nationalized structure, or free college education. These are both policies. It's not vibes-based at all. These are policies that are implemented in countries like the one I come from, Turkey. Turkey has a nationalized healthcare structure, and on top of that, there's also private elements as well. Turkey also has free public education, buzzwords. What do you think policies are? Get rid of the time waster. He's distracting you on purpose. I know. I want him to clarify. What is your counter argument against having a universal healthcare system in the United States of America? What is your, I did clarify, my message isn't showing up. You can't just cite the dozens of videos in which you read tweets and claim you have a policy prescriptive on how to achieve free healthcare and education. I am for universal healthcare. Oh, you are? Oh, fantastic. So what's your disagreement with my advocacy for universal healthcare? I think that considering that healthcare across the board, okay, whether it's pharmaceuticals or any sort of medical care whatsoever, is a good with inelastic demand, that there should either be severe market regulations implemented by the federal government, or it should not be for profit at all. That is the reason why I am an advocate for universal health care. If you're an advocate for universal health care as well. I suspect that you and I do not have any disagreements on this. So far, it doesn't seem like we have any policy disagreements at all. You've just simply, once again, instead of addressing any of the actual issues that you might have with any of the things that I advocate for, have consistently brought the conversation back to silly things like, oh, you read a lot of tweets. It's not true. Okay? Or your perspective is informed by tweets. Not true at all. This is a perspective that I've had for many years at this point. Your biggest argument against me is that I am a socialist living a hyper-capitalist lifestyle. You're just saying buzzwords. Providing a basic definition does not constitute a policy. You need to outline specific budget changes to implement universal health care. All your analysis is vibes-based. Chatter. This is why I said, go and watch one of these videos, one of these many different videos that I've done, whether it be an advocacy for single payer healthcare or any kind of like socialized medicine, any kind of videos I've done on socialized medicine, because unpacking for the purpose of one singular individual who very clearly in the videos in which you retweets, that's not true. There are, however, tweets that I do rely on. You do know why, right? I have also made this. I've also made this known time and time again. I use Twitter, and I'm still on Twitter specifically because all of the journalists that I trust, that I'm friends with, are also on Twitter. That is where they break their stories. Oftentimes, the tweets that I'm reading are not like summaries that some random person came up with, but instead, actual journalists that are summarizing the stories that they're breaking in the process of breaking those stories. If you personally think that your method of consumption, your primary method of understanding the world is better than mine, which is, I assume, considering the talking points that you've dished out so far, you come from Destiny's community, is to read Wikipedia articles summarizing those positions, then yeah, to each their own. When I'm engaging in news coverage, of course I'm going to look at journalists that are breaking their stories, people that work at think tanks that are writing out their analysis before they go on CNN to talk about that very same analysis. We just, I guess, have a disagreement. You like it when it's summarized and spoon-fed to you with a specific point of view from Wikipedia summarizations. That's it. This is not going to work. Saying like, I can read tweets too. Especially when virtually no one, I fucking hate D. Okay, well then you're a uniquely stupid person and somehow worse than the many DDG operatives that are in this chat waiting for their opportunity in the spotlight, just like you took over, because you're using his talking points without actually even trying to understand what my position is or what I've done. You're just in it for the sake of being, for the sake of having a moment in the spotlight where someone who you personally have emphasized as a person of importance, offering you a little bit of acknowledgement. One that you can't get from your immediate friends and family, I assume. So this is where you're being a bad child right here. Anyway, the point that I was making had nothing to do with debate lording. The point that I was making originally was not even supposed to be about just debating, but instead the intersectionality of privilege. Something that I've talked about quite a bit. What position that you deserve a mansion under capitalism? Nobody deserves anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I deserve a mansion under capitalism is not a important part of my commentary. It's not even a part of my commentary at all. No guest star. It was getting so funny. Yeah, I read one crazy person. There's probably going to be a lot of people. Anyway, we're going to talk about the intersectionality of privilege.
Shapiro type, who it's not like Ben Shapiro turned statute of limitations on racism. I think the fact that their apologies are so, you know, I hope I was a little bit more helpful and you know, you guys got to see how I genuinely feel. This conversation is really what is the statute of limitations on racism? I think the fact that their apologies are so tone deaf shows that they actually haven't changed. And what is the litmus test for who should be canceled? Okay, say the F word, but not be like Ben Shapiro. Does it depend on who's affected by those words? I'm going to have a thread on Twitter canceling me now. Probably. The thing is, like, I obviously also participate in this. Like, I obviously also participate in cancel culture, as do most of you. But the way I look at it is, like, if they've demonstrated, for me, it's like demonstrating that they are doing this. They know better. They're doing this despite knowing better. And they consistently have done this. And maybe they're profiting in one way, shape, or form by doing that problematic behavior. Those are some elements that, and that's just
like, dude, look at this. Okay, look. This is why I said debates bring forth the most like insane, the most toxic audience. After making millions, law, copium, you could have done what Asman did for the past year. You could have avoided ads by being unpartnered like Asman did. Wholly disingenuous. You just lie about everyone who disagrees with you. Try and engage honestly. Making bad arguments for a good cause is worse than making good arguments for something bad. Be better. Making bad arguments for a good cause is worse than making good arguments for something bad. If you stop at slogans, we will never get there. You need to support a plan to implement these policies, not just the slogans. Anything that moves, any legislative action that moves America away from profit seeking in the healthcare sector, I am on board with. That is why I say that ultimately I want a nationalized healthcare system, but I am perfectly accepting of any kind of addition to expanding Medicare. Okay? Like, I was a fucking advocate for Sherrod Brown's expansion of Medicare to the age of 55. Okay? That's it. There are bills written for it, and I have advocated for them over and over again. It's so, like, I don't know. Oh my God. You're getting yelled at by people who don't believe in anything. I know. It's ironic because you're not even making any argument whatsoever. You're just sole purpose in this chat right now. Your sole purpose in this chat is to present yourself as though you are with the cause, comrade, while simultaneously just like derailing. This is the other part of the problem. Every single time I bring up a person, okay, every single time I bring up a person and, you know, give them attention that they're so desperately seeking and they feel ridiculed, other people who are like-minded also come in and go, oh, well, that guy was stupid. I got this. Hold on. Let me do this. And then you repeat the same fucking idiotic points over and over again. Yeah. Be unpartnered.